Hi everyone, my name is Natasha Westover and welcome to Accounted International. Today I'm joined by AK and we're talking about communicating bad news. It's always awkward, but at some point in your career, we all have to do this. And today we've really framed it by thinking about what happens when one of your team members who reports to you isn't pulling their weight, they're performing badly. How do you approach that conversation? And we're going to hand over to AK, who quite frankly sounds like a headmaster, when we were talking about how we would handle it. So AK is quite strict, guys. You should know that. So AK, why don't you kick us off?
Thanks for that. I don't know that I'm necessarily strict, but I do think that
But you have to be strict. It's
yeah,
I think that's
as a
the first thing.
manager,
It's a professional environment. You have to be strict.
you have to play by the rules, is what I'd say. So, from my perspective, um, if you have to communicate bad news to somebody, it shouldn't be a surprise to them. People generally have a feel for how they've been performing and whether or not they are meeting targets and objectives that you've set them. And as a manager, you should really be having regular meetings with your team to discuss workload and performance, and these things should be picked up along the way. And I think they can be light touch to begin with. How are you getting on with this piece of work? Are you on track to meet your deadlines, etc.? And treat it as a gentle sort of reminder to people that they're not achieving what they should be achieving. And then obviously as it progresses, then you need to become increasingly more formal in how you're doing it, because it can form part of a disciplinary process. But certainly, nobody should go into a meeting about their performance and it'd be a complete shock and surprise to them and not achieving what you expect of them. What about yourself, Tash? Do you have any views on that?
Yeah, I think what that means though, if it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, it means you, like you said, you have to have regular one-to-ones. Or if you're just a culture that doesn't have regular one-to-ones, but you can see this person is not performing and you're starting to get worried that certain pieces of work won't be completed on time, it means you've got to take a deep breath and go in and have that conversation. And as always, I say, think about your language. It can be really, I think you called it like the soft touch approach. So it's things like, what I've noticed is that we don't have this piece of work. We don't, like, break down what it is. Like, this is the thing they have to do, break it down and think about how many of those components you've actually received already, or go and check on the system and see have they done them. And then you're able to say, oh, what I've noticed is this isn't reconciled, this spreadsheet isn't up to date, and so I'm wondering, are we okay for this deadline up here? Like, you have to kind of like put in the legwork, right? And just help them understand it's these components and I can see that they're not done yet. So how, inside you're thinking, how on earth are we going to make that deadline? But maybe your language is a bit more like, oh, what I've noticed is a few of these things aren't done. I'm wondering how you're getting on. Do you need any help? Have you got any questions? It's those sorts of things. And then that leads up to it shouldn't be a surprise when you're actually having a more formal conversation towards the end.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's that thing of using the sort of regular communication to coach people, to put your arm around them and bring them along for the journey and say, look, these are the things that we need to do to achieve that deadline. How are you getting along with that? How are you getting along with that? What can I do to help you to achieve that deadline? I think it's as a manager, you're not looking to help people to fail. You're looking to help people succeed. So you need to identify when they're falling behind, and like I say, go over, figuratively, put your arm around someone, say, this is this could become a problem. Whereabouts are we?
And at the start of this, I made a joke about you being a headmaster, but having worked with you, I know you're not like a school teacher or headmaster in the workplace. You are very much like put your arm around them, help coach them. But not everyone's like that, and not everyone has the skills to do that, which A, that's why we talk about these things here, but B, you have to think about what your style is around that. So you went very soft with that, Andrew. And the only thing I would add to that is at the end of those sessions, make sure it's crystal clear what's expected and what the next steps are. And for some people, it might be just breaking it down a bit further and going, to meet this deadline, you've got to do this by this point. Do you understand that's the next steps for us? So that's the only thing I would add to like putting your arm around someone and coaching them, is just being clear at the end of that session that the person you're talking to understands the next steps they have to do and when they have to do them by.
I agree. I think occasionally you just have to add that little bit of steel to say, look, we've reached the end of the line. When you have reached that point, I think it's important that if you're having a formal, I won't say disciplinary, but a formal meeting to discuss performance, then it's vitally important you stick to the facts. Don't give anything sort of emotive or emotional. Try to make sure that these were the parameters we set. You've consistently missed those parameters. We've discussed the fact that you've consistently missed those parameters. This is, as you say, the line in the sand. This is what we have to ensure we're achieving, and if that doesn't happen, these are the consequences. I think you must stick to those facts, because it could form part of a formal disciplinary, and then potentially sort of a termination situation. So have to be very, very strict with yourself and try to stick to the point and make sure that everybody is clear where you stand. So,
I think on sticking with the facts, it's such a useful tool on quite a few fronts. I'll just run over a couple now. I think it helps you stay calm, because if you're sticking to the facts, like inside, it doesn't feel very calm, because especially when you first start doing this, it can feel awkward. You don't know what the person's reaction is going to be. So if you just stick to the facts, it helps you sort of stay focused, calm and collected, and like, this is what we're doing. Also, if you repeat the facts, then no matter what the dynamic or energy is in that session, that person will leave at least knowing the facts. Because if you repeat it and repeat it, then when they go home and they're having, a drink with their mates or whatever it is they do, and they start telling the story, they'll at least be able to repeat the facts. Everything else might be a bit of a blur, because the meter might go not well, but keep repeating the facts, and at least that person will remember it. And when they mull it over, they might be able to come around to go, do you know what, the facts are this, and I failed at those things. So I understand where you're coming from. They might have good reason for why things fell apart, but at least they know where you're coming from, and it's probably something that will stick in their head. And probably I know you've got way more to say on this, Andrew, but probably the other thing is the facts help make it's not personal. And these are the facts, and you and us together, we have to deal with the facts. We have to deal with these facts. It's not you're to blame and I'm here to tell you off about it. It's like, you and we have a problem. These are the facts. And I think it helps keep you focused, but also it helps to not shift any blame anywhere. It's like, together we have this problem and together we have to solve it. These are the facts. So that's what I would say with that one.
No, absolutely, and I think sort of leads onto the next point as well, in terms of the language and how you interact with the person. While I probably do come across as very strict and matter of fact, you can't be completely emotionless in these sort of situations. You have to understand how that person's feeling, and or try and put yourself in their position. You're getting told off for something. You're obviously upset, and you may be angry, and as a manager, you need to be able to anticipate that and show some empathy and warmth towards them, and sort of say, look, I'm not here to see you fail. I'm here to help you succeed. And I think summarize your meeting and give them examples of how they can succeed. And it might be that example is, you need to hit this deadline or there will be serious consequences. But at the same time, you can say, look, we've only got 2 days. Let's all pitch in and try and get this done. I'll give you these jobs to do. I'll do these bits to help you along. And you find a compromise. I think all too easy. It's all too easy to stand there and sort of wag the finger and say you're not doing, when in fact it's your job as their manager to help them to achieve that. So I think having a little bit more sort of a parenting style rather than a headmaster style can help.
Yeah. What's really funny when I was listening to you is that I'm probably way more strict in the workplace than you are, but ironically. But what I would say based on that is I use language like help me understand how we got here, help me understand why we're so behind on this. And I think that helps open up the conversation. And earlier you were talking about sort of staying calm, about the reaction you might get. I can safely say I've had reactions to these types of meetings and I was not expecting the reaction I got. I've had people shout at me. I've had people say really horrible things about me, like personal about me. And at the start, I really wasn't prepared to what's my comeback with that? And so I've actually had a couple of really good HR managers over the years who've helped me with that. So if you feel you don't have the language or you don't have the skills, or you're maybe a bit anxious and going, oh, I'm not quite sure how to approach this. If you've got a HR manager or any HR contacts, I would always ask them, because they're quite good at putting other language around it and having another personality, and also they're kind of like a bit removed, because sometimes when you're in it and you're sat opposite that person and you see every single day how they're maybe mucking about and they're quite talkative and they're not getting their work done, you can get quite emotional about it. And so it's quite good to have another person help you with it. So I have definitely turned to my HR managers, and sometimes even when it's a bit of a meeting or a session that hasn't gone to any great lengths, I still invite the HR manager in to go, we seem to have a bit of a problem here, can we discuss it? And depending on the dynamic and culture, you can do that. But also think about who's around you who might have gone through this. Can they help you? But I definitely say things to people like, help me understand where we are with this, help me understand why we're there. And that really is great words to open up a conversation, because like you said, you just don't know how someone's going to react when you start having these types of meetings with them.
Absolutely. No, I think language is massively underrated, and picking warm language rather than sort of cold, sort of clinical, very matter-of-fact language can soften the blow of bad news, and can help to bring comfort to you, not just to the person you're meeting with, but also to yourself. Using the right language makes you feel reassured that actually we are making progress, one way or the other. Actually, I do think I've identified this person's not going to work out, or using the right language, you can get the right responses.
Yeah, and I think sometimes you kind of have to read that situation and read that person. So with some people, if you say to them, um, you seem to be lagging behind on stuff, and also your behavior every day is like you have tea breaks, you have lots of cigarette breaks, you talk a lot, and do you realize the impact that has around people around you? You know, the rest of the team are all hitting their deadlines and you're not, and maybe you haven't recognized that. And with some people, if you kind of like almost create that element of competition with them and their teammates, they'll really respond to it. Other people won't. They really hate it. So you have to think about what sort of person you're dealing with, and hopefully you know them a little bit if you've been working with them for some time. And part of your job as a manager is to constantly look at how that person is reacting to other things, good things, bad things, how they react even to like football results at the weekend, stuff like that. How they deal with things like that, how they deal with disappointment, how they deal with like real happy things. Do they go out, get drunk, come in hungover? You know, how do they actually function? And when you recognize that, you'll have a better understanding of how to approach these types of meetings. Anything else from you, AK?
No, I think that's good. Thanks.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you in the next video.